Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for coming to spend part of your Monday evening this September 11th, 2023 with me. September 11th is always a very somber day here in New York, and I think in a lot of parts of the world. And it doesn't really feel like it's been 22 years. Does anybody else feel that way? In a lot of ways, it feels like it's just yesterday. But it has been 22 years, and I would be certainly remiss if I did not mention that today is 9/11. I have so many friends who are first responders, and so many friends are currently suffering from 9/11 related illnesses, and so many friends were lost in 9/11. And, you know, for those of us here, it's a tough day. I know the Duty Ron and Ed were live earlier with some coverage, and I think Bill was also live as well. And they are all first responders. So my prayers go out to all of the family members, children, parents of the victims of 9/11, first responders who were lost, all the first responders who responded to and worked on the pile for so long, and those who are currently suffering with 9/11 related illnesses that are just 22 years later, just starting to pop up. And I'm a little succumbed about it. So I'm going to move on, and we can go back and talk later about 9/11 as well. But there was so much coverage on it today, and I saw every year I watch the names being read. And this morning it was really hard because there were some little kids that were reading names who obviously weren't born, in 2001 when this happened, but they were so articulate and they pronounced every name correctly and with such incredible grace and charm and diction, like they had practiced the list of names before they came out. And if anybody else saw that this morning, it was really touching. I mean, just made you want to cry. But I wanted to show something in honor of 9/11 that my brother put in our family group chat this morning. And I don't know if anybody remembers this, but this is the clip from when President Bush threw out the first pitch a month after 9/11 at Game 3 of the 2001 World Series at the Yankee game. So I'm just going to read the caption before we play the clip. And it says, just over a month removed from the 9/11 terrorist attacks, President George Bush insisted on throwing the ceremonial first pitch at Yankee Stadium prior to Game 3 of the 2001 World Series. This was despite being advised to do so in Arizona for safety precautions. As he prepared to step to the mound in front of 50,000 roaring Yankee fans, Derek Jeter famously said to him, "Don't bounce it, they'll boo you." Not only did he not bounce it, but he threw the pitch from the rubber and whipped a strike, all the while wearing a bulletproof vest. Simply unforgettable. This is one of those moments that transcends politics with the hashtag never forget. And here's the clip.
Ceremonial first pitch. And please welcome the President of the United States.
Walked out on the field, and I mean, the energy and the crowd and the noise was really, really powerful. Into conventions and rallies and speeches, I've never felt anything so powerful, and the emotion so strong, and the collective will of the crowd so evident.
Very nice throw, Mr. President. Good stuff, good stuff.
Does anybody else remember that? Kind of feels like yesterday, doesn't it? But it wasn't. It was 22 years ago. Okay, so we are moving on. Today was the arraignment of the disgraced former Suffolk County Police Chief James Burke. And you may recall that I covered the original arrest that led to these charges for which he was arraigned today back on August 22nd. So for those of you who do not remember what happened on August 22nd, I'm going to play the clip of my coverage with the press conference that we watched together back on August 22nd, and we're going to watch that. And then for those of you who aren't familiar with James Burke, after that, we're going to go back and talk about what James Burke did, how he was disgraced, and how he was involved with the Long Island serial killer case and the Gilgo 4 and thwarting the investigation, and how he is blamed in large part for the failure to have anybody arrested for the Gilgo 4 murders for 13 years. But let's go first to the press conference that we watched together on August 22nd on my channel to refresh our recollection about the charges. Now that's, I mean, I could have picked a better frozen screen, but what else? Let me know you can hear it. Rodney Harrison has my vote. I don't think that's an elected position, police commissioner. Richie Gross says, please, yes, please. Okay, here we go. We're going to watch the press conference again. If you are just tuning in, breaking news, former Suffolk County Police Commissioner James Burke, aka Jimmy Burke, who also spent 46 months in prison for an unrelated charge, who was the Suffolk County Police Commissioner during the 2010 time when the Gilgo 4 were found. He's also the police commissioner who did not want the FBI involved in the... Oh, major fail. He was the police chief, not the police commissioner. That was totally my error. And people, you know, harp on me all the time. They come for me in the comments. But try doing a live show for 3 hours. You're going to misspeak. He was the police chief, not the police commissioner. I apologize. The Gilgo investigation or any other police departments involved in the investigation. He was arrested this morning in Suffolk County at a park. Apparently that is known for lewd acts and SWs and places where people go to solicit SWs or take SWs to do acts. And he was arrested this morning for those charges that I already told you about. And now, once again, we are going to watch the press conference that just happened a couple minutes ago with Rodney Harrison, the current Suffolk County Police Commissioner. I'm going to, again, stop and tell you the questions because the questions are very hard to hear and the responses are important.
Steve Layton, as well as some of the men from the Suffolk County Parks Police, due to numerous complaints about activity over at Vietnam Memorial in Farmingville. Members assigned to the Suffolk County Park Rangers Targeted Response Unit conducted an operation utilizing plainclothes rangers. At 10:15 a.m. today, during this operation, they engaged one individual who was soliciting for sexual engagement. Due to the actions that I am not going to share, this individual was placed under arrest. The Rangers ascertained that our perpetrator involved was identified as James Burke, former chief of the Suffolk County Police Department. He was transported to the 6th Precinct by Park Rangers for processing. He's being charged with offering a sex act, indecent exposure, public lewdness, and criminal solicitation, 5th degree. Additional charges may be pending. And we are still currently trying to ascertain if he's still on federal probation. I open up the floor for any questions at this time.
Was it female officers, plainclothes there?
It was just male plainclothes officers at the during the operation.
When you say numerous complaints about the activity, can you expand on that a little bit further?
Sure.
When you say numerous complaints about the activity, can you expand on that a little bit further?
I'll have Steve Layton talk about the complaints that we received over there. Steve?
We have our targeted response unit within the Rangers that we get to problematic areas within the county park system, graffiti, vandalism, quality of life issues, theft. And the Vietnam Veterans Memorial is one of those areas that we've received numerous complaints about quality of life issues up there. So we're attempting to.
I see some people in the chat asking if he got arrested again. No, we are just replaying the original press conference from when he originally was arrested on these charges from August 22nd. If you were with me during that show, that's why you're seeing me twice on your screen, because I'm live here, but I'm playing my replay from the original press conference of August 22nd. I was in court today for his arraignment. So we're just recapping why he was arrested. And then I'm going to talk to you about what I watched today in court.
Do our best to curtail that.
And were there complaints of people soliciting sex?
That's correct.
And what was it? Was he soliciting sex?
Yeah.
Okay. How long had the plainclothes officers been out there before the arrest took place?
How long had the plainclothes officers been out there before they arrested him?
They were only out there a few minutes, to be honest with you. They had just arrived at the location.
Did your guys recognize him, and what was their? Did you describe the reaction at seeing him?
Did the plainclothes guys recognize him, and could you describe their reaction or at seeing him?
The ranger who made the arrest, Mr. Burke, did not know who he was.
I mean, did the ranger know who Mr. Burke was?
No,
Did the ranger know who Mr. Burke was?
not at first, not until he identified himself and said who he was. Do you know who I am?
So he said that to the ranger?
Yes.
So he said that to the rangers?
Yeah.
Was he attempting to get out of being arrested?
Was he attempting to get out of the arrest?
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
Could you describe that?
Well,
Could you describe that?
he was expressing to us how this would, be a public humiliation for him and such. So.
How did the arrest come to be? Did he proposition the plainclothes officer? Did the officer see something?
How did the arrest come to be? Did he solicit the plainclothes officer? Did the plainclothes officer say something or see something?
I'm not going to get into the details of that. Mr. Burke is still being processed by the detectives inside.
Was anyone else arrested?
Was anyone else
some of the men
arrested?
from
Oh, shoot. Hold on. Go back here. So it turned out that nobody else was arrested that morning. It was 10:15 in the morning. James Burke was in the parking lot of the county park known as Bald Hill, which is the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. And if you watched this live stream with me that day, you will remember that Peter Pranzo and his wife Rochella were in their car and actually went to the park where this arrest occurred and took some live video for us of the park. It was really cool. I'll link the description to that live video below. It's been a long day, you guys. So you can go back and watch that. It was a great live, and we did this all in real time. We didn't even know if there was going to be a press conference, and then it came on during the show, so we played it. I mean, talk about knowing how to pivot, huh? Getting good at this, you guys. It's going to be amazing. So initially, James Burke was charged with 4 charges. And what happened, allegedly, and what happened was he was sitting in his car in the parking lot of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Park in Farmingville, which is on Long Island. And according to Duty Ron, who was on with me that day, Duty Ron told me that like 20 years ago, his dad would tell him, like, don't ever go to that park. Bad stuff happens there. It was well known to be a place where people would go to solicit, sex and SWs and do, not bad things. And so it was known as a cruising place, maybe, or as a place where people would meet up with SWs. And Jimmy Burke was sitting in his car with his pants open and his parts out when he was approached by what we now know was an undercover park ranger, because as the gentleman who, I'm not sure, I think he was a park ranger, the head of the park rangers. I'm not sure what he's called. As he indicated, they had been receiving a lot of complaints from the neighbors because it's in a residential area. And these were quality of life complaints about this activity going on at this park. And so they initiated a sting operation. 10:15 a.m. They come upon Jimmy Burke in his car. He's got his parts out. And initially, the story was that Burke offered this undercover male officer, park ranger, a sex act. And he was then arrested on charges of, let me see if I can get the exact charges here. Offering a sex act, 5th degree criminal solicitation, public lewdness, and indecent exposure. A week later, oh, by the way, so they brought him into the precinct, 6th precinct, and he walked out of there like an hour later. It's a no bail offense, apparently. We were wondering if they were going to hold him. He was just let go. And a lot of people were not happy with that. Especially since he had just finished his federal probation, I think maybe a year before, because he had done some time in prison. So we'll talk about that. So about a week later, 2 of the 4 charges were dropped. And the 2 charges that were dropped were the offering a sex act and 5th degree criminal solicitation charges, because apparently after discussing the case with the DA, the story changed a little bit, and it may have been that Jimmy Burke did not say to the officer, I would like to give you a sex act. He said, I like to do this particular sex act. And so I guess they didn't feel like they could prove those charges, and 2 of those 4 charges were dropped. So the only remaining charges are the charges of public lewdness, which is a misdemeanor. It's a Class B misdemeanor, which carries a maximum sentence of 3 months in prison. And the other charge, which is, so we got the public lewdness and the indecent exposure. The other one I think is just a violation. Maybe it's just a fine. So the indecent exposure is the Class B misdemeanor. The other charge is a violation. So today in court, criminal court in Central Islip, I went to court, and he pled not guilty to both charges. Big surprise. He came in looking very clean, very well dressed in a nice gray suit, black tie, nice haircut. Walked in the main door of the courtroom, as opposed to some of the perps that were brought in through the side door, like I described, where Rex Heuermann came in that day, right into the pit, who were, handcuffed as such. He pled not guilty to both charges in front of Judge Bernie Chang at about 2:30 this afternoon. It was only maybe a 10-minute appearance. His attorney is a guy by the name of James O'Rourke. So he appeared with his attorney, and Judge Chang set this for trial on October 6th after he pled not guilty to both charges. Interestingly enough, James O'Rourke, his attorney, was also the attorney for Tom Spoda. If you know who Tom Spoda is, who is the disgraced district attorney of Suffolk County, who is currently in prison for his collusion with James Burke. And he was also the attorney for Dr. Peter Hackett. Does anybody remember who Dr. Peter Hackett is? He was the doctor that was involved with Shannon Gilbert's case. Some interesting connections there, because Suffolk County is a pretty big place, but the fact that he's represented by Spoda's attorney and Dr. Hackett's attorney is just a little wild to me. The pool photographer was from Newsday, so if you want to see any photos from today, check out Newsday's coverage. There really was not a lot of media there at all. I mean, I sat right in the front row. I'm an attorney. The first 2 rows were reserved for attorneys. There were a bunch of attorneys who came in from the from the DA's office, younger attorneys, or maybe they were interns, and like 3 spectators. And then there were a couple of reporters outside from local channels like Newsday, News 12. I think Greg Sergel was there. I'm not sure if he's with Channel 7 or Channel 4, ABC or NBC right now. And as I walked out, which I will tell you later, I came in contact with the reporter for the Daily Mail. So that was kind of interesting. Another little fun thing that happened today was that when I came into the courthouse, like around 12:30, I guess, because I had to take care of some other business in the courthouse, there was a 9/11 ceremony going on. And it had just finished, and there were bagpipes and a lot of public officials, and it had just finished. And I saw this guy. Anybody know who that is? Anyone? Anybody know who that is? That is current district attorney Ray Tierney, who is prosecuting the Rex Heuermann case, the Gilgo serial killer case. So, of course, I had to go over to him because I'm not just going to let him walk by, and introduce myself. And I said, Mr. Tierney, I said, I would just like to say to you on behalf of the Bar of Long Island and the children of Long Island, thank you very much for finally arresting the alleged Long Island serial killer, because we feel a lot safer going to the beach. And he was very nice, smiled, shook my hand, let me take a picture. And that was that. But he did not come to the James Burke arraignment, which I thought was interesting. That's not why he was in the building. And it's not some place that he would normally really be in the building. This is not the main criminal court building in Riverhead where the bigger cases are. This is at First District Court in Central Islip. So that was pretty cool. And it was just kind of a weird way that all of these things were sort of intertwined, Before I went into the hearing, I ran into somebody else in the hallway. So this is fun. We're going to go through Melanie's photo album now. Let me know if you know who this is. Okay, share. Did it come up? There we go. Anybody know who that is? In all of his sartorial splendor. Anyone, go into the chat. Let's see, I'm waiting. Rochella. Yes, that is John Ray, Attorney John Ray, who has been the attorney for the family of Shannon Gilbert since her disappearance. Such a nice guy. So sweet. I chatted with him for a while in the hallway, told him about my interest in the case and how I've been following this case since 2010, or really since, the body parts started washing up here on Long Island in 97, when Karen Vergata's legs washed up on Fire Island. He's been handling this Shannon Gilbert case pro bono, which means for free, since she went missing in May of 2010. I saw a recent lecture that he gave, and say about him what you will, but this man has donated between 30 and 50,000 hours of his own time on this case. He hasn't charged a penny. He has spent $50,000 of his own money on the Shannon Gilbert case. And he's very dedicated to what he does. He's been doing this for over 40 years. And he was very kind. So we chatted for a while, and then, we kind of split for lunch, and then we went into the courtroom, and I got a seat in the front row, because this time, as opposed to the Heuermann case, the first 2 rows were reserved for attorneys. So I sat in the front row, and he was talking to some of the reporters outside who wanted to talk to him. And then he came in, and I let him sit next to me on the end. He had a bag with him. He also has a cane. And I said, go do what you have to do. I'll watch your stuff. He's like, oh, really? Would you watch my stuff? I'm like, yeah, sure. Go ahead. Watch your stuff. So he's my BFF now. And I did talk to him about coming on the show, and he has said that he will come on the show. So we'll try and, schedule something that's convenient for both of us. I don't know how busy he is. He looks like he's very busy, but he was by himself. We walked out of the courthouse together. And as we walked out of the courthouse, Burke had already left. So we were kind of running a little behind because somebody stopped him in the hallway, another attorney, to talk to him. And I was waiting for him in case he needed help with all of his stuff that he had, because there's a cane and a bag and all this stuff. And so we walk out the front doors of the courthouse, and we're walking together, and we were being filmed by media. So if anybody sees any coverage from the Daily Mail, because they were one of the last ones there, you may see a shot of me walking with John Ray out of the building. So they start asking him questions as we get to the end of the sidewalk. And I'm like, oh, I have questions too, right? So I whip out my phone and I asked some of my own questions. So I'm going to show you the video of the questions that I asked, because these are questions that we have all been talking about for a while. So let me show you what he said to me. Just let me know that you can hear this when it comes up. Is there no sound? I can hear it. Let me see something. Let me see. Does anybody know how I can get the sound? Because this is like coming from my Photos app. And I've got the sound on and I can hear it. It may just be low. Could you hear me asking him the questions? Somewhere at the top left of the video on my Photos app. Let me see. That's like a fit. It's an iPhone. Let me see. Let me see. Maybe I can download it to my computer and then do it that way. Give me 1 second to just airdrop this thing over there. Because the questions that I asked him are things we've all been waiting to ask him for a long time. All right, I'm going to open it in QuickTime and see if that'll work. Let me see. Let's try it this way, shall we? Can you hear it now? All right, well, I'm just going to have to repeat what he's saying then. So let me just go back a little bit. Share sound and video. I know. I don't understand why. Hold on. Okay, I have an idea. Let's try this. Share video file.
Let it muck about in rumors for years. It needs to be, you need an independent body to come in. So, you know, the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, somebody to come in and investigate those things in Suffolk County. The sexual corruption in the police department in Suffolk County.
And the district attorney as well.
And
that's
the
involved
district
with this,
attorney,
right?
yes.
Okay.
All right?
Do you think there's any chance that Burke?
All right. Which channel are you?
Daily Mail.
Daily Mail. Oh, yeah.
Thank you for stopping.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Good to see you.
Think there's any chance that Burke knew any of the Gilgo 4 personally and or Shannon Gilbert personally?
There's a chance. Certainly is a chance.
You know if any forensics were ever done on his cell phone at the time?
I
back in
doubt
the day?
any forensics were done whatsoever with respect to Burke. Part of the cover-up. When you're sitting at the top of the heap for years, you can get rid of evidence. Very hard to find.
Does that surprise you?
Nothing surprises me anymore in Suffolk County.
Thank
Spoken
you.
like a truly jaded lawyer.
She said at the end, the reporter, I think she was from the Daily Mail, she said, spoken like a truly jaded attorney. And then I said, but I cut myself off, or a realist, which I thought was interesting. Were you guys able to hear that? I asked him if he thought that James Burke knew any of the Gilgo 4 personally. And he said there's a very good chance that he did. I said, do you think he, maybe he knew Shannon Gilbert personally or had any interactions with her? And he said probably. And I said, do you think they did any forensics on his cell phone at the time? And he said, nope, that was part of the cover-up. I said, did that surprise you? And he said, nope, nothing surprises me in Suffolk County. So he's been practicing here for 40 years. Didn't surprise him that wasn't done, but those are questions that I have too. You know, Burke became the Suffolk County Chief of Police in 2012. If we want to rewind a little bit to what happened with the Gilgo 4, the original Gilgo 4 bodies were found in 2010. And I think at the time, Burke was chief of detectives. He didn't become the chief of police until 2012. But in 2010, a woman by the name of Shannon Gilbert went missing. In case you are not familiar with this case, as thoroughly familiar as we are, who happen to live here. May 1st of 2010, Shannon Gilbert went missing. She was a 24-year-old SW from New Jersey. She had been meeting with a client by the name of Joseph Brewer at his home in Oak Beach, which is a gated community that is near Gilgo Beach. She had a driver with her. His name was Michael Pack. And she had some harrowing 911 calls that were not released until very recently, that the public never heard. You know, my opinion is, had these 911 calls been released years ago, back in 2010 when she went missing, maybe there would have been a better chance of actually investigating this case. But because of Jimmy Burke's issues, let's say, with the department, he never fully investigated the Shannon Gilbert case. So there's long been speculation that perhaps he knew her personally. He had some kind of interactions with her. And the waters, for lack of a better term, were very, very muddied. He had been... It had been found out, and I'm not sure if there were any criminal charges ever filed, but I think it was in, trying to find the exact date here. I want to say it was like around 1995. He had been smoking crack and having relations with an SW in the backseat of his police vehicle. So this guy was known to have had a predilection for such things. And so it was not really surprising to anyone when it came out later that he may have covered this investigation up, intentionally bungled it. And the Shannon Gilbert case sort of faded into the background a little bit. 2 days later, after Shannon Gilbert went missing, and if you haven't listened to the 911 calls, I suggest that you find them somewhere. They're readily available and they're pretty harrowing. 2 days after Shannon Gilbert goes missing, her mother received a call from this Dr. Peter Hackett. And he asked the mother if Shannon was there. And Shannon's mother's kind of like, what do you mean, is she here? Like, she's an adult. I mean, my daughter's 24. What are you asking me? And he tells her that he runs this wayward house for this house for wayward girls. And he tells her that he gave her something to calm her down the other night because she was acting a little crazy. And the whole thing is really, really bizarre. So she takes this information to the police, and in her opinion, nobody really does anything about it because, well, Burke was in charge pretty much, and also because of her occupation. And it was pretty tragic. Her driver, who had brought her there, left. Brewer was allegedly investigated. They found him not to be involved. Pack was investigated. They found him not to be involved. Hackett was investigated. They found him not to be involved. And when the police went looking for her body in the area where she went missing, that is when they discovered the bodies of the Gilgo Four: Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. So initially, when Shannon Gilbert went missing in May of 2010, they searched. They didn't find anything. It's a very marshy area. If you don't know about the area, it's very dark at night. Ocean Parkway, where this happened, there are no street lights. It's pitch black. It's marshy, and there's water on both sides of Ocean Parkway. So they don't find Shannon Gilbert. But in December of 2010, a police officer was conducting a training exercise with his cadaver dog and also looking for Shannon Gilbert. I guess there's conflicting stories, but I do think this was related to trying to find Shannon Gilbert. And that is when he came upon a body. And so they kept searching. And the first body they found was that of Melissa Bartholomew on December 11th of 2010. And then on December 13th of 2010, they found the bodies of Amber Costello, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, and Megan Waterman, all in the same stretch of Ocean Parkway, different stages of decomposition. Each of the four victims were found similarly positioned, bound in a similar fashion by either belts or tapes, with 3 of the victims found wrapped in a burlap type material, which we now know to be something that is used in duck hunting. It was camouflage burlap. All of them had missing clothing. We don't know what that is yet. They haven't told us. And their personal possessions were missing. So these 4 bodies were found because they were looking for, because they were looking for Shannon Gilbert. Shannon Gilbert's body was not found until, I believe, December of 2011 at Oak Beach, near the house that she had disappeared from, Joseph Brewer's house, which was also near the water in a marshy area. And attorney John Ray, who we just saw the clip of, has been representing the family ever since. He has been screaming to anyone who will listen that he thinks there was a big cover-up, because the initial investigation found that Shannon Gilbert's death was not a homicide, that it was an accident. That she must have stumbled in the dark and hit her head and fallen into the marsh and died or drowned by accident. There's been a lot of evidence to the contrary. There was one autopsy that was done in Suffolk County. John Ray's firm hired another private medical examiner, Dr. Michael Bodden, to do a second autopsy in which Dr. Bodden found a broken hyoid bone, which is a bone in the neck that is often broken by choking. And so Dr. Bodden came to the conclusion that he thought that she was the victim of a homicide. Now, you may recall that in 2022, when the task force for the Gilgo cases was started after Ray Tierney took office as the new district attorney because former district attorney Tom Spoda was in prison, and Rodney Harrison joined the Suffolk County Police Department as commissioner, they started this Gilgo Beach task force. And that's when, I think 13 months later, they had Rex Heuermann in handcuffs, and he's been indicted for the murder of 3 of the 4 Gilgo victims. He has not yet been indicted for Maureen Brainerd Barnes, but we've been told for a long time that this case is with the Suffolk County grand jury and that there's going to be an indictment soon. So we're still sitting here waiting for that. A lot of other body parts were found, torsos, things that they're calling Manorville butcher cases. And I don't know if we need to get into all of that today. But John Ray's been fighting this fight since 2010. And the current investigation that is looking into these cases again has again said that they believe that Shannon Gilbert's death was accidental. So I don't know what's going to happen to that. I don't know if they're going to reopen her investigation. I've read up on her case a lot. I've listened to all the tapes. I've watched the videos of the interviews that news people have done with the neighbor whose house she ran to went during that 911 call. The, transcripts of Hackett, transcripts of Brewer. And I have a lot of questions. So this guy's been fighting the good fight for a really long time, and he's a really good guy. Do I think the driver was involved? I don't know. I have questions about that too. Why did he leave her there around the world? Why did he leave her? If you listen to the 911 calls, it sounds like she's either having a psychotic episode, or maybe she's on some kind of drugs, or she just doesn't seem like, or she's terrified. And she says, they're going to kill me. They're going to kill me. Please send help. And she doesn't really know where she is. And the 911 operator is asking her, where are you? Where on Long Island are you? And she doesn't really know where she is. I don't know that he was involved. I think he's been ruled out, but I don't understand why he took his Suburban or whatever he was driving and went back to New Jersey and left this poor woman there. He was Spoda's chief investigator. Yeah, Burke was, right? Well, this gets really deep, you guys. This gets really deep because in 1978, there was a murder of a young boy in Smithtown by the name of John Pius. Pius. You can look it up. I got the receipts. Thank you, The Occult Rejects, for your $10 super chat, which I will get to in 1 second. John Ray and Christopher Loeb have told me they think there's occultism involved with Gilgo and Burke. Got receipts for that. Chris has promised an interview this week. Okay, that's interesting. Let's talk about John Pius first, and then we'll talk about Christopher Loeb. How about that? We'll rewind, and then we'll come back fast forward. So in 1978, there was a murder in Smithtown, New York. A little boy, I think he was 14 years old. His name was John Pius. And he was murdered by a group of 14-year-olds or 15-year-olds. I don't remember how old they were. Don't come for me in the comments on the details. I'm just trying to give you a little brief overview. And he had a bicycle with him. I remember that. And they stuffed rocks down his throat, and he was found dead. The star witness in the John Pius case, when that case went to trial, was Jimmy Burke as a 14 or 15-year-old boy. the lawyer who tried that case for the prosecution was Tom Spoda. So that's when Jimmy Burke and Tom Spoda met, and that started a lifelong relationship between the two. Tom Spoda obviously had political aspirations, and little Jimmy Burke eventually went to the police academy, was hired by the Suffolk County Police Department, and eventually worked his way up the ranks while wanted to become the district attorney, and with the backing of the Suffolk County Police Department, in which Jimmy Burke was, if not chief of detectives, may have been the police chief by then. With the backing of Jimmy Burke and his cronies, he was elected district attorney. So there was a real quid pro quo relationship between the two. It just started to rain so hard here right now. The other night when I did a live, there was like a lightning strike and my internet went out. So if I black out for a minute, just stay with me. I'll be back. But we've had some really crazy torrential rain today. It kept going from torrential rain, and I was driving and it was flooding. Like the water was up past my tires, and then the sun would come out and then it would happen again. I don't know. It was really, really crazy, crazy weather today. So the roots between Jimmy Burke and Tom Spoda run deep, and they go all the way back to 1978. And if Jimmy Burke was involved in that killing of John Pius, he showed from a very, very young age certain proclivities, certain tendencies, psychopath, sociopath. So for people to speculate that if that was true, it wouldn't be so far from the truth to think that he was involved in some or all of these murders on Long Island, right? I mean, it doesn't take a rocket science to kind of connect those dots if you wanted to, because, you know, we're not accusing anybody of anything here. We're just talking. There's also been a lot of SWs that have come out and said that they had relations with Jimmy Burke while he was on the police force, and that he was very, very violent, that he would pull them by the hair, throw them down, beat them up. And they've been public and they've given interviews. One of the girls' names is Leanne, and she came out a couple of years ago and did an interview. And John Ray, I think, represented her, and he was there at the press conference where she spoke about it. And then just recently, a couple of weeks ago, she spoke to the Daily Mail. And I know a lot of people don't like the Daily Mail, but I can tell you from my personal experience today, they are actually there. They are actually in the courtroom. So when they report on something, it's not just like they're making it up. They were there. They were on top of it. They were more on top of it than the local people. They stuck around waiting for John Ray to come out of the courthouse. Everyone else had left. So I got to say, from personal experience, the Daily Mail is on it. So say what you want. So now, fast forward to 2012. And in 2012, let's go back to this article. In 2012, there was a man named Christopher Loeb. I can't find my exact article that I'm looking for here, but I'll just summarize it for you because I pretty much know it. In 2012, there was a young man named Christopher Loeb. They claimed that he was a heroin addict at the time, and he stole a duffel bag out of the back seat of Jimmy Burke's police-issued vehicle. Inside the duffel bag was a box of cigars, his gun belt with some ammunition, some sex toys, and some other pornography that some people have said was a snuff film. I don't know if that's ever been proven, but that's what the information at the time was. Christopher Loeb was brought into an interrogation room in Hauppauge, New York, which is also in Suffolk County. He was handcuffed, and Jimmy Burke beat the bejesus out of him while several other officers watched. The officers were threatened by Burke not to tell anyone. They were threatened with all kinds of things, loss of job, loss of status, not to tell. And eventually it came out because, like all good things, you just can't hide something like that after a while. So Christopher Loeb had been sentenced to 3 years in prison for this incident. Burke was charged with violating Christopher Loeb's civil rights. And in February 2016, Burke pled guilty to some reduced charges. And it was for violating his civil rights and obstructing justice, and for leading a conspiracy to conceal his involvement in the assault. Tom Spoda was also in on this, and he was also convicted, and he is still currently sitting in prison. He was sentenced in 2021, and he's 79 years old, and he's serving a 5-year term. So Burke went to jail. He was sentenced to, I think, 46 months. He finished his sentence in April of 2021. And after that, he was sentenced to 2 years probation, which would have ended in April 2023, which is right before, coincidentally, these charges, this sting operation happened and he was arrested. This runs deep. I think eventually Christopher Loeb was awarded, he sued the county and he received a $1.5 million settlement. Thank you, Joe Laverack, for your $5 super chat. Would you consider having John Ray as a guest on your show? I love you, by the way. Oh, I love you too. Thank you so much, Joe. Yes, I definitely, like I said, yeah, I would. So we're going to see what happens with this. I mean, I don't know that he's going to serve any time. The other thing that's interesting to note here about Burke is that he is still collecting his police pension of $145,000 and change per year, because he was allowed to retire prior to those charges, those civil rights charges being brought against him. So according to Duty Ron, even if you commit murder after you're already receiving your pension, they can't take it away from you in Suffolk County. So there's that. Let's see. DM, I would think that Rex Age's lawyer will bring Burke up as an alternate suspect regardless during the trial. I think you're right. And I think it's interesting that that John Ray said that nothing, was Burke investigated at the time. Apparently not. Apparently his forensic, nobody took his cell phone data. There's no digital trail for him. I don't know that he was investigated at all, and it's way too late for them to get any of his records. People have speculated for a long time that he was either personally involved with some of those victims or may have known Shannon Gilbert, and that's why he put the kibosh. After he became police chief in 2012, he would not let the FBI into the investigation. He called off the investigation on Shannon Gilbert altogether. And nothing was done for many years. In fact, we know from all the deep diving that we've done into the Gilgo 4 that Amber Costello, who was one of the Gilgo 4, she was the last to go missing. Get back to my notes here. She went missing on September 2nd of 2010. Amber Costello, who's 27 years old, was from West Babylon, Long Island, went missing. The last person to see her alive, his name is Dave. He gave a statement to Suffolk County Police Department with a description of the last person that he saw her with, because although Amber Costello was an SW, she had clients come to the house, and he also lived in the house. He was a roommate. He told the police that, I think it was maybe the night before she went missing or 2 nights before she went missing. There's some conflicting stories now about when this was. It'll all be in the original police file, which I don't have access to. Amber Costello had a client who we now know is Rex Heuermann, who came to her house And because she had 2 male roommates and they didn't want her performing SW because they just kind of wanted the money. They were all into, drugs at the time and they needed money for drugs, but they didn't want her selling her body. So they had this ruse that they would pull where they would let the John come into the house. She would take the money and then one of them would run in and pretend to be a jealous boyfriend and scare the John away, and she would keep the money, or they would keep the money. This happened to Amber Costello a day or two before she went missing. And after they chased Rex out of the house, Rex texted Amber and said, "That was very nice what you did. I want a credit for next time." So what happened was the next day or 2 days later, we're not sure, Heuermann sets up another meet with her, comes to the house to get her, tells her to leave her phone at home, which she does, and she's never seen again until her body is found in December of the same year. So 3 months later. Dave, the roommate, gave a description to the police of Heuermann as being somewhere between 6'4" and 6'6", having a lot of hair, having these big 70s style glasses, described him as looking like an ogre, and driving a first generation green Chevy Avalanche. All of this information was in the police file immediately after Amber Costello went missing, whenever that missing persons report was made, and or after her body was found. So within 3 months of her going missing, they had this information, the physical description of Heuermann and the description of his vehicle. My question is, why didn't anybody look at the file? And I could have done this in my law firm. I could have done a DMV search. I could have gone into the Department of Motor Vehicles computer, run a search on males that were between 6'4" and 6'6" within a certain radius, because Rex Heuermann told everyone where he lived, told everyone, according to these SWs that have come forward that survived him, that he lived in Massapequa. He tried to get one girl, Nikki, who's done a lot of interviews, to come to his house in Massapequa. So he lived nearby. So the radius didn't have to be that big. From Babylon to Massapequa is not very far at all. Run a search of all males in the area, 6'4" to 6'6", cross-check it with registrations of first generation green Chevy Avalanches in the same radius. And I don't know, they probably would have come up with that information pretty quickly because the car was registered in his name. And 6'4" to 6'6", let's face it, there's just not a lot of guys that are that big around here, or maybe anywhere. I don't know. But I'm just saying the information could have been easily found had someone not buried it, not covered it up. Because when the female state trooper who became involved in the 2022 investigation, the new task force, saw that in the files, she made the connection very, very quickly. Thank God for her. Otherwise, we'd still be having a serial killer walking around out there. So that's why Jimmy Burke has kind of been on the hot seat for a very, very long time. Susan Jason says, Burke went to well-known Hackett parties where SWs were invited. Yes. And that's another connection to Oak Beach. Austin D says the same thing. Burke knew the guy whose house Shannon was at last when she was killed. Yeah, that was, wow, the rain is crazy. Brewer, right? Joseph Brewer, which is why he brushed it under the rug. Right. He didn't want the FBI looking into him. He didn't want the FBI looking into his cell phone. The guy had it was already known, and you can look this up. This is true. Loretta Rickenbacker was the name of his girlfriend that he was caught having sex with in the back seat. She was a known SW, and they were smoking crack. I mean, there's public records. I'm not making this up. There's receipts about this. Moderator, you're not really one of my moderators, but anyway, height would be a needle in a haystack. They would ping phones first, then cars around and security cameras en route to the apartment. DMV height, you'd be 300 deep with that population. I don't know. I live here. There's not a lot of guys that tall, trust me. But yeah, okay, there's other ways of doing it too. But I'm just talking about a way that, you know, I could have done myself, not being in law enforcement with all their technology and all their resources. But would you disagree with me that he could have been found pretty quickly in 2010? Yeah, but this guy told Amber that he was from Massapequa. So I don't know. We don't have to get into that whole rabbit hole. My opinion is, and if anybody is and I know there's people in the chat that are law enforcement or retired law enforcement, you tell me what you think. All right, let's see. What does Ann Vroom have to say? Yes, pensions are quite judgment proof. Even after the Goldman family got a civil award, they couldn't collect on OG's 401 funds. Yeah, well, this is a Suffolk County rule that I think has been changed. I told you that was going to happen, but I'm back. Yeah. Let's go to some questions here. Thank you, Caroline. I agree with you. Caroline says people can say what they need to about John Wright. He's been loyal to justice. I respect that. Yeah, and he hasn't quit. He hasn't said you didn't pay my bill. I'm not gonna represent you anymore. And tragically, I don't know how long it was after Shannon Gilbert was found. Her sister killed her mother. So Mary Gilbert, the mom of Shannon Gilbert, was tragically murdered sometime after Shannon's. It was a horrible, horrible story. Crazy. Tracy, thank you for the question. I have a question. I hope someone can shed some light on this. When Shannon left Brewer's home, she was running toward the gate. How did she end up dead behind Brewer's home if someone didn't put her there? I don't know. I don't know. There's so much speculation and there's so many different theories. And her clothes were found, I think, kind of some distance from her body. And you know, why was it not found until over a year later? I mean, there's so many questions. Did they keep her somewhere and then after they knew they were done looking, then the body went out? I don't know. But apparently, according to John Ray and other people who talk about the Shannon Gilbert case, it was only like 3 inches of water. There was not a lot of water outside where she allegedly drowned. So I don't know. I just don't know. What camera footage are you talking about, Lauren? What about the camera footage? What camera footage? Diana Cusimano Valentine. I've often wondered about the timing of the 2 Long Island Riverhead execs' alleged apparent suicide. J. Big and if they're related in any way to these cases. I don't have any information about that. I do not. But yeah, there's been, you know, Suffolk County has been there's a guy on TikTok who calls it the sewer of corruption, and he's a traffic lawyer and he talks about the traffic court being the sewer of corruption. It's kind of funny. He's kind of funny. I forget his name on TikTok, but he's good. Anybody have any questions? Any questions, comments, concerns before we wrap it up here? He will be going to trial unless there's a plea bargain on October 6th. So that's what we have coming up next for Jimmy Burke. Still collecting his pension. I don't think he's going to do any jail time for this, you guys. I really don't. But we shall see. Thank you. Thank you, Tina. Maybe if he lived in the Netherlands, he might have blended in at 6'6", but even there, right? I know. I'm telling you. I'd be interested to know just now for fun, just to go into the system to find out how many men are between 6'4" and 6'6"? Like in Nassau County, if you took a, like a pin where she went missing in Oak Beach and did like a 30, even just a 30-mile radius, I'd love to know how many there are. I bet you there's not a lot. Yes, Curious Kiwi. Hello to New Zealand. I've heard it said Shannon wasn't in that place when they did the first searches. Yeah. There's a lot of questions. We've had a lot of questions about this for a very, very, very long time. And that's where we are today. I'm not seeing any more questions. I will go to the trial on October 6th, of course. I will also be going back to see Rex Heuermann's next court appearance. And I have so many appearances on my calendar. I can't tell you for sure when that one is, but I think it's on, you know what, let me just look at my calendar. I think it's September 27th. Rex Heuermann will again be in court. I was there for the first court appearance. I also did a live that day. And boy, you could feel the evil in the room when that guy walked into the room. It was in the air. It was potent and it was chilling. Heuermann's appearance is on the 27th. I will be there for that as well. There's a lot of things coming up this week. If you've been following with Duty Ron and I, the Jacqueline and Trezell West case, their sentencing is going to be on Wednesday. We will be covering that. That's a tragic case out of California. And a lot of stuff. 9/11, prayers up. Anybody want to say anything about 9/11? Everyone remembers where they were on that day. Coincidentally, I happened to be in the federal courthouse building right next to the building I was in today in Central Islip. And I remember before I left the house, I saw it on TV that the first plane had hit. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. And then as I was getting out of my car to go into the federal building, which is a huge white building. It's massive. I think it's the tallest building in Suffolk County. I heard that another plane hit and I went in for my court appearance and we were in the courtroom. We were on the top floor. And eventually, I started saying like, listen, this is not an accident. You guys, like, you got to let us out of here. We're a target. If this is terrorism, you got to let us out of here. They finally let us go. They let us all adjourn our court appearances that day. And we all took the stairs all the way down. And I remember my husband at the time was surfing in Long Beach and he was out on the water and he could see the whole thing going on and the smoke and it was horrible. Nobody's cell phone worked. We couldn't reach anyone. My brother was working across the street from the World Trade Center. We couldn't reach him for a long time. It was tragic in so many ways. And it really, really feels like yesterday. It really does. I remember going down and to the elementary. I had 2 kids in elementary school at the time. And I ran down to the school and I got them and I pulled them out of school and I brought them home. And we were all glued to the TV. Not my kids, but I mean, everyone who lived here. And I think people all over the world to our TVs for weeks afterwards. Every time we would hear a plane in the sky, we would jump for a very long time, for maybe at least a year more. Every time you were on a plane after that, when the plane landed safely, there would always be a round of applause. That went on for years. Never forget. Never forget. Thanks, Cheryl. Thanks, Cal. Thank you to Miss Donna Marie. Sandra, I was working in the city back then. Surreal and terrifying. Yeah, it was. People covered in ash trying to get out of the city, trying to walk over the Brooklyn Bridge. My daughter, who wasn't alive at the time, told me today that her one of her teachers in school, because I asked my kids, I'm like, do they do anything for 9/11 in school to commemorate it? And the high school kids had a moment of silence. And my daughter is in a different high school. And she said, one of my teachers told me a story that his dad was working in the city and he had a pickup truck and he lived in Staten Island and he took as many people as he could in his pickup truck that were covered in ash and he drove them out of the city. And then he came back and he kept just taking truckloads of people out of the city. And she said, Mom, you know, I was talking to some of my other friends. She has friends who she goes to camp with, and they live in Maine and Massachusetts and stuff. And she was talking to her friends, and they said, what do you mean everybody knows where they were on 9/11? And I think it's such a thing. We talk about it with our kids here that we all knew where we were when that happened, but it doesn't go for everywhere. And these kids who weren't born, I think they need to be taught more about this in school, because such an important part of our history, and it was so surreal. Yeah, surreal. Darlene, at first I thought it was a movie. Yeah. Karen says, I was at my friend's house for morning coffee before going to classes. It was surreal. Ginny, my son joined the Marines. They were all sent to Afghanistan. Thank your son for his service. It must be really scary as a mom to know that your son is going to Afghanistan. Scott Briggs, I was stuck for 45 minutes in the R train that morning coming from Queens, and I knew something had occurred, but not all of it till I got to my museum job. Yeah. Because you were underground. There's no service anyway when you're on the subway. And wow, I don't know where you got off, or if they made you get off wherever your train stopped and like go through the tunnel to get out. So scary. Caroline, most of us that are old enough to remember will never be the same. Hard to imagine the trauma being a New Yorker. Yeah. Becky Buck says, my oldest was like, oh yeah, you were alive then. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Hi, Phil. Phil, one of our first responders, one of my BFFs, who co-hosts so often with Bill on Police Off the Cuff, who gave me my first YouTube break. Hey, Melanie, thanks so much for remembering the solemn day. It's very sad how easy everyone forgets. I know. I couldn't. Phil, I almost didn't want to go live today at all because it's such a solemn day. But then I remembered that I promised everyone I'd come on with the news because I was in court. So I wanted to make sure to take time to talk about this at the end. And thank you so much, Phil. I know you were a first responder too. And I'm sure you have all the memories. We will never forget. Deborah Hillman says, it's just like the generation before me. They all know where they were when JFK died, right? Or Princess Diana. I remember that too. Seb Galloway says, I told my son about it again today. That's when I found out I was pregnant with him. Wow, that day? Wow, so he's 22. 21, maybe he's turning 22. Real Power says, my son was called in to provide police security after the towers collapsed. Yeah, and I mean, that is something that nobody expected. I mean, that the towers would collapse like that. And people, you know, who were in the area saw people jumping. I mean, it's ingrained. It's ingrained. That's the kind of PTSD I don't think you ever get over. Rochella Phil Grimaldi, thank you for your service. God bless. Margaret Hutchins, my husband's cousin, was sent to Ground Zero with the Red Cross. Yep. Oh, Scott coming back with the rest of the info on that R train story. Oh no, I got to West 53rd and then got coffee. Then we went to work and then I heard what had happened. Yeah, you know what it's like, what it was like that day. Wendy says, hi, Wendy. Thanks for moderating today. I flew into California from Michigan for a concert on 9/10, no concert. And we had to stay in California till we could fly home. I don't remember for how long flights were grounded after 9/11. Does anybody remember how long they were grounded for? But I do remember that the LIE was closed. The Long Island Expressway was closed for days, I think. I don't think anybody but first responders could get onto the Long Island Expressway. And oh, you're welcome, Phil. Duty Ron, are you here? Do you want to come on and say a few words? Oh, Duty Ron, never forget. Duty Ron, tell me, I'll send you the link if you want to come on and say a few words. Phil, if you want to come on, let me know. Duty Ron, I don't know where you are, if you're in front of a computer or, you know, if you're not feeling it. Everyone's saying yes, please, Duty Ron. Ron, text me if you want to come on. I'll just send you the link, and then that way, if you want to come on, you can. Mary said, I've been watching on TV. Yes, Duty Ron and Phil. Oh, Phil's in the car. Phil, do I have your phone number in my phone? Let me see. Oh, I do. Now I do. All right, I'm going to message you the link, okay? Give me 1 second. You guys keep talking. Why is it not coming up on here? I'll get you, Phil. All right, Phil. You should have it. If that's not the exact link, I'm going to send the next one to you in 1 second. You should be good to go. Allison BD, thank you. All first responders in the chat, American heroes. Yeah, 100%. Sandra says they didn't want anyone coming to the city except essential personnel. That's correct. Julie, I worked for Air Medical Services and we were grounded for over a week. I think nationwide, right? Flights were grounded. Oh, Teresa says I tried to watch Duty Ron today, but I just couldn't. I was in court, but oh, send it through email. Oh, I have your email, Phil. Hang on 1 second. All right, let's try it that way. You're just going to pull over to the side of the road? That works for us. It went to you, Phil. You should have it. Dragon Claws, we just took things for granted. Life is precious. Yeah, so many things changed in so many ways that day. I mean, before that day, there wasn't even really airport security. You could just walk into an airport without a ticket. You could walk your friend to the gate. You could walk in to meet your friend at the gate. I mean, it was crazy. Wendy said Ron and Ed had me in tears. Yeah. Kelly Wark, John Ray, and yes, Tierney. I recognize them too. Super cool. Yeah. My brush with greatness today, right? Yeah, I sent it to him. I sent Phil it by email and text. I did it both ways. Yes, and I think I did address the super chat from Duty Ron, right? Yes. Thank you, Duty Ron, for the super chat. Never forget. All right, I'll wait a couple minutes and see if you guys want to come in. Or if you get in. Scott says in the 70s and 80s, there were sadly tons of terrorist incidents at European airports and others bombing, no security, nothing or hardly any. But yeah, I tell you that some of those countries were far better with their security than we were by 2001. Teresa, thank you for all your service. Elaine Campbell says, I never wanted to go into New York City after that. Yeah. I think a lot of people felt the same way. Moonlight View. That morning we heard the awful news. My hubby and I drove straight home from Santa Barbara to Lake Arrowhead. I've heard Lake Arrowhead's really beautiful. Not one car on any of the freeways, people on overpasses waving the flag. Yeah, and that's in California. Michelle, you want me to post it in the chat? I can post it in the chat. All right, Phil, we're going to find you. Mary Flynn says, I went to New York after that to support their businesses. That was nice of you, Mary. Thank you for that. Kel says, have your tissues ready, Kiwi. I guess Kiwi's going to go back and watch the replay of Ron and Ed's show from today. Karen said, yeah, it was a horror after horror that day. Yep. That's okay, Donna. No worries. All right. I don't know if we have Phil. Do we have Phil? We have an APB out on Phil. It's true. Nationwide trauma on everyone. Yep. Who even wanted to fly after that? Yes, Becky, the Pentagon. I get emotional whenever I think about Flight 93. Such bravery. Let's roll. Let's roll is right. And we have Phil. Boots on the ground. Phil, give me a thumbs up whenever you're ready. You ready, Phil? Here's Phil, everybody. Can I hear you? Let me see. Do you have your audio on?
Now I got you.
Okay. Hi, Phil.
How are you, Melanie?
Good. I'm thinking about you today. How
I
are you?
appreciate it so much. I'm good. I'm good. I don't like to, relive September 11th, 2001 on 9/11 so much. I kind of avoid it, but I got my car. I just came out of Costco, believe it or not. I popped in and I looked at my phone. I saw you were on. I figured let me throw a comment in. And I really, really want to thank you and appreciate that you're doing this. It seems like so many people forget so easily. And unfortunately, I have to say this, even our president, he failed us today by not coming to New York or to Shanksville or to the Pentagon. But that's just an unfortunate situation. And I really feel like this is a day when politics kind of gets in the way of the heroes that lost their lives that day, and all of the people that still suffer the illnesses related to 9/11, including myself, Bill Cannon, Duty Ron, all of us that were down there. So I kind of recognize it quietly. I don't believe in the going down there on 9/11 with all the pomp and circumstance in the media. So that's just me, though.
Yeah, I know. I understand, and I feel you too. We have Duty Ron in the house. Hi.
Hey guys.
Duty Ron, my man.
Yeah, Melanie, I just want to say thank you for even just giving us the opportunity to come on and hang out with you for a couple of minutes and, remember September 11th, 22 years. And I was telling you on the phone before, the last 2 years has just been rough, and I don't know why, and there's no explanation for it. But we have each other, and that's what friends are for, So, reach out to, people like yourself and Ed. We did almost an hour and a half show, and then we showed some media towards the end. But yeah, it's difficult, and we got the community. Our community is great. So thank you everybody in the chat and people who support, the men and women, and not just in law enforcement, in the military, and the regular plain people who paid the ultimate sacrifice that day and volunteered. The iron workers, the heavy crane operators, the teachers, the nurses, the doctors, the lawyers, the everyday people who, who's suffering now, 22 years later.
Right. Right. I have friends who are just being diagnosed with things now that are related, and it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking that so many people that really sacrificed in, such major ways by going there every single day, police officers, law enforcement, firefighters, other first responders, doctors and nurses, giving out waters and feeding people, running the soup kitchens basically for everyone that was working down there and everyone that donated food and everyone who tried to help. I mean, there's never been a time really in New York history where New Yorkers have come together like that. I don't think.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah,
absolutely.
And Phil, I hope you're doing well, health-wise and everything. We heard from Ed Wallace today, prostate cancer and a whole bunch of different surgeries from 9/11 related. And Ed's got autoimmune disease and all kinds of things going on, and he's still traveling the world and, trying to educate the world on forensics. So, yeah, I always think of my brothers and sisters and everybody that that was there that day, So
yeah, God bless Ed. We know he's been through a lot of different health issues. I myself started coming down with some health issues in 2007. That's when I first went for my screenings. From 2007 to about 2013, 2014, that's when things kind of leveled out. I didn't have cancer, thank God, but a lot of other different issues, and everything is in check. You got to stay on top of it. Duty Ron, as you know, you got to go for your annual screening, stay on your meds, and hopefully, you are able to get through it and live a long life. And, with the medications that are out there and the support system that's out there, I thank God for the World Trade Center Health Program, because I really feel like they saved my life. My health turned around over that 6-7 year period quite drastically. So, and one thing I wanted to point out, and Duty Ron, I'm sure you'll remember this as well. We were down there and breathing that crap in, and we knew it, and we were saying this can't be good. And then all those years later, everybody just started getting sick. And I was down there for 7 weeks, and people down there, I know people down there for a whole year,
right,
from beginning to end. And
right.
We just went. We got the call. We went, and that was it.
Look at Louis Alvarez, right? He testified before Congress, and days before he passed away and went into hospice. If you look at his before and after pictures, just unbelievable. And he was an advocate for all of us right up until the end. So, and John Stewart, you can't forget him. Here he is out there being a voice for everybody. It's not just for the first responders. He got that coverage for everyone going forward. But Melanie, I mean, I gotta say, getting back to what you did today, and you went out to the courthouse, and you stuck true to your audience and to your subscribers, and that's what it's about, building this community. And when you said to me, "Oh, I don't feel right, maybe I won't go live," I kind of encourage you to go live, because I think it's important for us to stay connected with the community, and that's why I pushed forward today. I didn't want to do that live stream. I really didn't. I wasn't feeling it. But I said that I think it's important to share our experiences with everybody that take out their time and spend hours watching and listening and supporting and subscribing and sending encouraging messages on all the cases that we cover. So kudos to you, Melanie, and getting that Johnny Ray interview. And I just loved it. I thought it was awesome.
He's a pretty cool guy. He'll come on with us. I think so. But yeah, it just felt wrong to me today. I felt, and I don't know why, it feels worse some years than others. And I think maybe like after everything we went through with the lockdowns and realizing again, how precious life is and how we take so many just day-to-day things for granted after being locked in our houses for close to 2 years and not being able to lead normal lives. I mean, that's like the second time this has happened in my lifetime. And like, this just feels, I don't know, it still feels raw all over again. And you're right. Like, where was the president today? I don't want to get into any politics and I'm not talking about it, but I feel like it's important, Phil. I have to agree with you there.
He let us all down, guys. He let us down. And I don't want to get too political myself, but it's like a gut punch when the president of the United States, on a stopover refueling in Hawaii, decides to give a speech on, the 3,000 that gave their lives that day, or a little bit less than 3,000, and the 5,000 that have died since from illnesses related to the exposure down there. The worst history on the soil of America. Worst attack in history on the soil of America. And I think the response from the White House was, 22 years after Pearl Harbor, politicians and presidents didn't go to Hawaii. Well, that's not a good enough excuse for me. I'm sorry.
Ron, you got anything to say on that front?
I could go on and on, but I don't want to turn this into a political fest. So I agree. I concur. Again, it's a day to obviously remember. We should be remembering every day what happened on American soil, not just here at the World Trade Center in New York City, but in Shanksville and at the Pentagon and all of the people who have been affected and the flight attendants and the people on those airplanes. We should be remembering them, and Todd Beamer with the Let's Roll.
Yeah.
These are the people you don't hear gets talked about on the news. I remember them all. I think about them all. I pray for their families because my own family, Ralph, his wife, has gone through hell and back, and both her kids, who were 1 and 2 years old at the time when Ralph was killed, my cousin, a local 3 electrician, on his second day at that World Trade Center job. He had 7 years in the union as a journey foreman. So he had a great job. He had a great career. He just bought a house in Baldwin, actually West Hempstead, on Baldwin Road, and he was renovating it and had a brand new kitchen put in. He was doing all the work himself, and he had his life ripped away by his radical Islamic terrorism. So these are the things that I keep in the forefront. I think about these people. I think about this situation 365 days a year. It's not just on September 11th. It's just that I don't like to force feed this to everybody on a regular basis. So I keep it within myself. I pray. My aunt is a Catholic nun. I talk to her all the time. And when you're not feeling good and you're feeling blue, you're not a coward to go and get help or talk to somebody. And,
Yeah,
and
100%.
I've done that myself, so that's the big picture here. And that's the conversation that needs to be had and needs to continue on a regular basis. And I want to thank everybody again in the chat and the people who watch the replay and subscribe and help us out with encouraging messages, because you guys are the true heroes too as well.
Yes. And I even feel weird going down to Ground Zero now, like the new building, like that's just not my skyline. I miss my skyline. I do.
I hear you.
I haven't been back to Ground Zero since this
I haven't
happened.
either. I mean, but I see that new building and it's such a tourist attraction and the whole Oculus thing. And I'm just like, I just can't do it.
Yeah.
If I'm around that area, I just kind of avoid it. I don't know.
I think one of these years I'll muster up the energy to go back there, but it's just it would, I think it would annoy me to go there to see everybody taking selfies and, and listen, I'm not, this is not like me. This is just my opinions of how I think I might feel about it. And, so if I was to go there, I'd want to go like when there's nobody there, and you can't do
Right.
that. It's
No.
open to the public. So,
Middle of the night, maybe. Right.
Yeah.
Duty Ron, I'm with you 100%. I feel the same way that if you go down there, I guess because we lived through it, we saw it. When you see the World Trade Center, Twin Towers at your feet crumble to the ground and you see the death and destruction, to go back there and just be in that kind of an atmosphere, that kind of just, it doesn't sit right with me. That's why I've never been, I've been down there on assignment before I retired, but I've never been down there to the museum or anything like that. I do want to do it, and maybe Duty Ron and I can do it together. They do have some first responders can go in on days when the public's not allowed. There's certain times of the year. We got to look into that, I guess. But
well, there's a family only the night before, like so September 10th. I could have went down there with my family, but they don't even go there because they've been there a couple of times, but they don't even like to go there. So I think maybe even on the 25th, coming up in a couple short years, three years. I think maybe on the 25th I might venture out there, or any time that I feel it might be right. But I would do it on a day with the families, because all I got to do is show my ID. And, my cousin had the same last name as me, and I don't think anybody would decline me entrance to that location. So.
Duty Ron, I got to ask you something, because this happens to me every year. Around the 1st of September, I start to get like a little jittery, start to feel like that little knot in my stomach. And then today it's like the knot is there all day. And then it seems to like ease by tomorrow. Do you get that kind of feeling?
Well, you see, I was telling Melanie on the phone tonight, like Friday, it started really coming over me. And usually it is earlier, like, as soon as August 31st comes. And, we've been busy with this escaped prisoner, so I've been covering that every day, and that's been keeping me busy, not thinking, but I'm still thinking about it. So on Friday, I preemptively told the powers that be at my location. I said I'm taking Monday off, and they didn't even question it. They're like, okay, do it, take whatever you need, and which is great. So I took off in advance. So because that's how blue and down I was feeling. And when I went to the cemetery today to, visit with my cousin, it's just really just a very small piece of his remains. I went and saw my grandmother, my mother's at the same cemetery. Today was a bad day for me. And then at 12:30, I went live right straight from the cemetery. And like how I was able to muster that up is Ed Wallace pushed me and said, hey, let's do this. It may be therapeutic. And it turned out to be good because we had such great feedback from our audience, and it didn't garner a big, we didn't have thousands of people watching. It's just a shame when you look at it like a big thing, a big tragedy, an attack on our country. You go live with it and you have a couple hundred, or I think we had like 800-900 people watching, which I thought was decent. But you could talk about, an escaped prisoner and have 15,000 people watching. It's more important. More people are more interested in it. This kind of just fades away a little bit, and it's human nature. I get it. I'm not making a big thing about it. But you would think that people would come out in droves on this thing and support just for once a year. And like I said, I think of it all every day, all the time.
I think it should be a national holiday, in my own personal opinion. I think 9/11 should be a national holiday. Thank you so much, Stella Bella, for your very generous super chat. The smallest gestures of kindness have the greatest impact. Pay it forward for all the 9/11 heroes. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's not often that we end a show in tears, but I just, that's how it is today. It is.
Yeah. It's sad because these memories never go away. Being down there and working on that pile, and when I was looking at the clips that I was playing from the Bucket Brigade, it really brought back some deep memories for me because of the things that we saw and the people who were crushed underneath cars. And I could go on for hours about the horrific things that I personally witnessed myself. But when you see this stuff and it's here, it never goes away. it's just a time to sit and reflect, and I reflect often on it, but this one time, just once a year, like you said, Melanie, I think it should be a recognized holiday, because it's not just something that happened to New York City. It happened in 2 other locations, and it happened to the entire United States. And I think the world, for that matter, was impacted by this, because all of our allies and our partners across the globe stepped up and joined forces with us to fight radical Islamic terrorism. And I'm not afraid to say that.
Yeah.
And I hope you don't mind that I say it on your show, because
No, 100%.
it is what it is. You know, that's who killed 2,977 Americans on that fateful day, and not just Americans, people of all walks of life and from all different parts of the globe, but they were Americans living here in America. So
hundreds of nationalities were killed that day, Ronnie. You're right about that.
Yep.
yes.
You know what I remember too is Windows on the World. I used to love to go to that restaurant, you know, and
been
all
there.
of the workers who were there, you know, getting ready to start serving lunch. And, you know, it was like this amazing restaurant. For those of you who don't know, that was at the very top
yeah.
of the World Trade Center, and with amazing views. And when you were up that high in the towers, you could feel the buildings swaying when you were just, you know, up there for dinner, and such great memories of that place. And crazy.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I'm gonna jump out of here because
And
I'm
I think we
exhausted.
should
I
all
was ready
say
to go
our
to bed.
goodbyes and our final thoughts. And we love you all. Thank you all for watching, and thank you all for listening. And we appreciate you so much, because without you, we don't have channels. And for your support and your super stickers and your super chats, and to my moderators who are the best on YouTube. And Ron and I share a lot of moderators, and you guys are the best. We love you so much. We couldn't do this without you. Thank you, D, getting in here with the $9.99 super sticker. Thank you so much. I see on my email that some of you have bought me a matcha latte, and I thank you for that as well. You know, this show today was not about financial you know, gains or views or likes or any of that. This is you know, we're here, and thank you, and Phil and Ron, for coming on with me, because you were actually there, and thank you for your service. And I love you guys too. So if you guys have any final thoughts, we'll wrap. But this is a heavy one tonight. Thanks, you guys, for hanging in.
I'll yield to Phil.
Thank you, Melanie. I appreciate it. I'm just feeling good about coming on and talking about it, and recognizing that you know, it was a terrible day, 9/11, but at least we made it through, and hopefully we can carry on the tradition and support our first responders that are sick and still coming down with illnesses. Just thank you to everybody, and thank you to Ronnie. Thank you for your service. I know you were down there as well, and that's all I could say right now. Thank you.
Melanie, I want to just end it by thanking you for letting us come up on your platform. It means a lot. You
Absolutely.
know, I didn't plan to talk about this at all until again next year. So again, the people that are in our live chat, the live interactive chat is really what makes our communities go. So you're the heartbeat of our community. So thank you to all of you for, again, I can't say it enough, for the comments, the, you know, hitting the thumbs up and doing all those great things that we ask you to do. This is some of the greatest places to be on YouTube, because to be honest with you, there are some shitty places to be on YouTube. So thank you for sticking with us. And Melanie, I love you. I appreciate you.
I love you guys too. You guys are the best.
Thank you
Everyone,
so much,
peace, love, stay safe out there, and we'll see you soon.
Never forget.
Never forget.